What's up, everybody? It is Redbeard here from Audio Biz, and I am joined by No Beard, Mr. Eric Reese from Shure today, and we're going to be talking about a brand new addition to the Axient Digital family, the Axient Digital PSM. So you're going to want to stick around and hear all about this new digital PSM. So, Eric, we've got a new addition to the Axient Digital family, the long-awaited digital PSMs.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do, Sean. I'm sure everybody knows or has used the industry standard touring product, the PSM 1000s, analog.
We use it on Ain't That America.
That's right. Great band there.
It is.
So now it's been in development for years and years. People have been asking us, when are you going to do a digital IEM system? And there's only a few systems out there. Finally, Shure Engineering and product development have gotten it done, and we're super excited to launch it today, right?
Yeah, today. Today is the launch day.
You heard it here first.
Exactly. We are going to be the first to the internet talking about this wonderful product.
Great. Looking forward to it. Let's get in.
Yeah. So we've got duals and quads.
Duals and quads.
Duals and quads. That's huge because a lot of people have wanted quads in the past.
Yes. If you're familiar with Axient Digital, when we jumped into the digital realm, we went from a 2-channel receiver to a 4-channel receiver. Now we're going to do the same thing in the in-ear monitor world, and we're going to offer a 4-channel transmitter and a 2-channel transmitter.
That's awesome. Wideband. Is that coming?
That is coming. So maybe I'll preempt you here, but in the past when we started talking about in-ear monitor systems, some of the feedback that we got from the field was, hey, I love this PSM 1000, this analog transmitter, again, been the industry standard for a long time, but we really wish we had wider band tuning, because at that time you were constricted by different bands, and depending on where you're going, everybody knows that's out there touring, knows if you don't have the right band for the city, it's kind of a crapshoot to find the right area to transmit in.
Yeah, but, and that's becoming harder and harder. I've got buddies that are doing touring and stuff, and now you look at places like Chicago and Phoenix and LA, you're very limited on what's the available bandwidth. And now that people are doing, multiple members on ears, it's getting harder and harder. So wideband is quite welcome.
Wideband tuning, yep. So just like Axient Digital, the other thing that people were asking for is digital inputs.
Yes.
So in the analog world, we just had analog inputs, and of course, everybody's got a digital console now.
Yep.
So we're adding digital inputs. I say adding, it's a completely new product. We'll get into it. But so we've got digital inputs, whether it's AES or, again, another industry standard, Dante.
Yep.
We'll be able to go in directly digital from your console.
And obviously still analog.
And analog too. Yes.
Got it.
Good point.
Sometimes it's easier to troubleshoot that XLR cable than it is to open up the old laptop.
When in doubt, analog.
So what are going to be the advantages of moving from an analog system to a digital system for in-ears?
That is an awesome question, Sean. Redbeard, Sean. Just like when we moved from analog mixing consoles or analog wireless to digital wireless, there's advantages in sound quality. The only main drawback, I guess, on top of everybody's thought process is potential latency. So there's going to be a little bit of latency. What's the trade-off? But we think that the advantages in the sound quality and the transmission and digital transmission are going to far outweigh any latency issues that we have.
Yeah, but the latency is still pretty low for a digital product. I think our specs was 2.9 milliseconds.
2.9 milliseconds,
yeah. That's pretty much right on par with Axient Digital.
Correct.
So we're not, obviously Axient Digital being a touring standard, people are used to that. And from what you were saying in the beta testing phase, a lot of people were cool with, love the audio quality and like the advantages that the digital gave them, and the latency wasn't as important.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we get caught up on, and I do too, we get caught up on latency numbers and things like that. But in practical usage, when people put these things on, they kind of have an oh wow reaction to the sound quality and forget about any little time differences. I mean, I always liken it to if you're standing in front of a wedge monitor on the stage and you're right up near it, you're probably 4 feet away, 4 milliseconds away. So
that's true.
Are you really going to hear that? Now, the cool thing is, Sean, in this system, we anticipated that.
Okay.
Sure, we do a good job. We're always working on new and exciting things. But one of the things we wanted to do with Axient Digital PSM is make sure we had options for our users. So one of the huge options that's baked into this new system is an analog version. So if you like your PSM 1000s, there is an analog mode in ADPSM that will allow you to get back some of that latency. You will be operating in a single carrier analog transmission mode, just like PSM 1000s. And so if latency is a big key feature for your artist or key issue for your artist, you can put it in that mode and operate in analog mode. That also means that some of your legacy, P10R pluses or P9R pluses are not obsolete at this point. You can put it in that mode and transmit to your current packs.
Okay. But obviously you're dealing with different frequency bands going from a wide band on your tuning, so you're still going to have to remember that your P10 packs are in a certain band split, but that's really cool. Gives you the options, lots of different choices. There's also another thing on here from the digital transmission standpoint that we have got that is new to this product of WMAS.
Yeah, let's talk about WMAS.
Yeah, what is WMAS?
So I'm sure you've heard or seen or read a lot of things in the industry lately about WMAS.
Yep.
It is a wireless multi-channel audio systems. So what's going on is the FCC just finally decided on some new ways that we can operate in the frequency spectrum. In the good old days, I say good old days.
Good old days.
I don't know if they're good old days, but anyway, we had to operate with a single carrier and a single frequency. So everybody, your microphone or your ears were, single carrier, single frequency, single channel. And because we operated like that, we had to have all this spacing in between to make sure they didn't interfere with each other and whatever. So it's traditionally worked out pretty well, but with everybody from TV stations and everybody else wanting to use these same frequencies, our spectrum that we can utilize has been kind of compressed. Well, knock on wood, the FCC has now granted the ability for us to take the single carrier, single frequency model and do some special things. So now we can actually operate, and again, I am boiling down some white papers and ruling to a very simple thing is we can operate up to a 6 megahertz chunk, almost like we're a digital TV station.
Okay.
Now, Shure has taken the approach where we may not need a full 6 megahertz to operate. And so our operation modes in here are going to vary, but what we're getting to is we've got a mode in here, a WMAS mode, that will take essentially 4 channels, put them into an 800 kilohertz, chunk, and transmit 4 channels essentially packed together by themselves.
Got it. So it's kind of like you were saying DTV of, I had channel 27-1, -2, -3, -4. So they were like little subcarriers within the big block. So allowing us to stack more channels closer, higher density. So
absolutely.
I was looking at the specs, so in regular digital, well, actually here, we'll go back to analog. So analog, 9 channels per 6 megahertz, just like our PSM 1000.
Yep.
And then we step up into digital, just like Axient Digital, we've got 17 channels per 6 megahertz in individual carriers.
Yeah, because we're switching to digital, the out-of-band emissions and whatever we can get around some of the intermodulation artifacts, we can then stack channels on even spacing, and that allows us to get 17-ish channels per 6 megahertz.
So then when we go to the WMAS, we're packing those channels into a larger carrier.
Larger chunk,
Larger chunk, but multiple
chunks,
channels within that carrier.
Yep.
and then we can get, what is it, 28 channels right around
Yeah, 28.
per 6 megahertz in WMAS mode.
28, 29, whatever it takes. I'm kidding. 28-ish.
Awesome.
Do the math.
So let's get into the new Beltpack, which is the receiver on the PSM side of things. I always have to think about that in my head with transmit, receive, packs,
Absolutely. Yep.
all that fun stuff. So there's a new pack. Size is similar, maybe a little bit thicker to it's
6
huge.
inches by 12 inches. I'm kidding.
That's a little bit bigger than an ADX1, a little bit thicker. About the same size, though.
Very similar in form factor to an ADX1, slightly bigger. It's about the same depth. In fact, it uses the same battery, lithium-ion rechargeable battery, because this is an Axient Digital, and it is an ADX. If our people out there know what ADX is, that means there's some two-way control going on. So the new pack is the ADXR. Again, utilizes the SBC 910
The SBC 910, yes.
To power it, you need the power density of that lithium-ion batteries.
It comes with 2 of them.
Comes with 2 of them. We ship with 2 of them. Don't forget to buy a charger.
Yes, you will need a charger. It is a rechargeable battery product only. So we've got a couple new chargers, a docking charger, and then obviously your normal SBRC rack mount charger, which is super popular for the touring guys. The SBM 910 module will be needed to charge those batteries.
To go in the rack charger, yeah.
So
it's a really cool pack. Again, pretty relatively small. It's got a cool new knob on the top.
The knob is awesome.
It's a knurled knob. You know, in development, I was in a previous role here at Shure. I was in discussions in some of these, and it's amazing how many knobs we went through
really
to settle on this knob.
It is funny because, like, I am not a musician. I normally hide behind consoles and let you guys, be the rock stars. But typically, packs obviously are always on the back, out of sight, out of mind. So yes, that tactile feedback of a nice knurled knob is awesome.
It's a great band name. I'm going to start a band name.
The knurled knobs.
The knurled knobs. The other thing that's cool about it is it's an encoder this time. So if you know our PSMs before, it was a pot, given your volume control. Now it's an encoder. I suggested it go to 11. They didn't like that idea. Maybe next time.
Sure, engineering, you should have listened to them. This one goes to 11.
This one goes to 11.
So,
two antennas on it. It is a true diversity system, meaning it's got 2 antennas on it, and then the 2 antennas feed 2 front ends of the RF that are constantly receiving signals on both of those. Then they're looking at both of those signals and they're figuring out which is the best one, or if they're both really good, they're adding those together and utilizing that for your signal quality, your audio quality.
So basically, it's the same as an Axient Digital microphone in the receiver. There was 2 separate radios to receive my A and B antenna. So it's operating in this very similar way. It's just micro in the pack.
Absolutely.
Another cool thing is we will be able to use ShowLink, so our AD610 remote control capabilities. And
super cool.
Fun, cool features.
In a world, ladies and gentlemen, if you're familiar with ShowLink, or if you're not familiar with ShowLink, if you add our access point, the AD610, allows you to remotely control your microphone transmitters while they're on stage and whatnot. So now, you heard it here first, we are now able to remotely control Beltpacks. So if you're sitting side stage or backstage or out front and I'm standing on stage, now you can look in your wireless workbench. You can tell where my battery is. You can tell where my volume level is. Mm-hmm. You can tell where my limiting settings are. You could even, with this TalkBack communications control protocol, you could even, in theory, lock me out from any changes myself and control my settings remotely while I'm performing.
I mean, sometimes that's important now that you're getting, costumes and things that, all the times that you're using different monitoring, and sometimes it is hard to get to a pack, especially, like all the costume changes that are going on in the pop rock world,
That's right.
You got to change that. But that's super cool from the remote capabilities. One of the other things that I was super excited to hear about also was over-the-air firmware updates via the ShowLink. So we've got this on our MXCW, I think, is the first one that did the wireless over the air, if I'm correct.
Sounds like a small feature,
It
but I
is.
tell you what, I just updated some PSM 1000s about last week.
Yes.
And we went through, I think it was 6 packs, and if you know how you have to hold them up to the screen.
Yep.
Now, the tip, if you've never done it, put it on a mic stand and let the mic stand hold it, because if you mess it up,
You can break
it's
them.
not fun. And it's about, what, a minute and a half, something like that?
It
but
feels like
seems
5.
Yes.
Exactly. It
Feels like 5
5
hours. So now, in this new day and age, if you have the AD610 and the ShowLink enabled, you can just push firmware out to multiple packs at the same time.
Yeah. So also with the 610, we'll still have the ability to push frequencies also, which is going to be huge. So for the touring engineers that are coming in, I might have transmitters, or actually will receive on this side of things, but with guitar techs and other people that are around, instead of gathering all of those, pushing all my frequencies, doing all of that, I can do that over the air and just hit a button, send it out. Super easy on the workflow. Also, if you're dealing with broadcast, I like saying this, when you're putting on an IFB on the talent, you might not see it for 6 hours because it's just going to be wandering around on the talent. They don't want to necessarily take it off, make a change, put it back on. You got to employ the A1 to do that.
I'm glad you mentioned 6 hours, because we get about 6
true.
hours of battery life.
6 hours of battery life. That is pretty cool.
So should be plenty for your show or for your event.
The other cool thing, actually, there's 2 other cool things that I found out. One, the clip, the belt clip that can be reversed. That is super cool. If you have ever worn PSMs, all the antennas are always pointing up, which can, especially if you're sitting down like a news anchor or something like that, you can be basically having everything poke into your back. So you can now flip the clip, so I can have my antennas going down. That's super cool.
Always a smart RF thing to do.
Yes, That is true. And then the other cool thing is, we talked about IR sync. You still have to IR sync to make your initial pairing of that channel with the receiver. But the IR window is now on the back of the unit, which is really cool, because you can IR sync and you can actually see what is going on the screen instead of trying to do hold it an inch away from the unit.
I've done that. IR sync on the old one was in front and you couldn't see the screen, and
Yes.
Cool little feature.
Yeah. Another cool thing, updates to Q mode.
Q mode, a whole bunch of channels. I think it's
Q
like
mode's
40 something or something now on the channel.
Yes.
Q mode, if you don't know what
64.
Q mode is.
What does
64.
it say? 64.
64 channels.
See,
so if
I'm
an engineer, if I'm a monitor engineer, I can basically go in, instead of the frequencies, 500 and something megahertz and 502 megahertz, I can go in, set up each of these packs to say lead vocalist, guitarist, this, that, and other thing. Now there's the frequencies associated with those, but I can put a full list together, and then if I'm the engineer and want to quickly scroll through and listen to what's going on each of these mixes, I can use the up-down arrow. It's basically a quick way to change channels.
Yeah.
Super cool. Now, those will also sync from pack to pack. So once you do it in one pack, you can sync it across.
That is huge, because it's the old way on a PSM 1000 was kind of a pain, because you had to use all the little tiny arrows and program the channels and do all of that.
Up, down, down, left, right, left, right.
Exactly.
Select start or something like that.
Exactly.
Yes. What else? Hey, you got to talk about the sound quality.
Well, that's true.
A brand new, really clean and quiet. We spent a lot of time on the headphone amp in there. Obviously, it's a very important thing on in-ear monitors. We spent a lot of time on that. I know the engineers are super proud of what they've come up with.
Okay.
The other thing that I think is cool here is we put our locking connector, that you see on some of our Beltpack transmitters, the screw thing, is now on the top. I'm not currently aware of any in-ear monitor manufacturers that offer that locking connector. Because
hint to all you in-ear manufacturers, including the Shure engineers, if you're watching this.
Absolutely. Well,
locking connector.
Now that we have that on the pack, let's see it on some ears. I think that's going to be great, because it happens all the time. Somebody pulls out their ears.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that'll be nice. Also, a lot wider stereo separation.
Yes, with the digital world, the problem with doing a stereo image in analog is you don't always get a full stereo image. There's always some stuff going on. Now in the digital world, if you're in the digital mode, it is amazing, the stereo imaging.
Cool. So we've got new antenna combiners for this system. There's a 8-way and a 2-way, but there's some smart functionality in them, correct?
They are smart digital combiners.
What's so smart about them? What makes them smart?
What
It's
makes
really
them
cool.
smart?
I know
No,
the
so
answer,
it's
but-
actually the entire system makes them smart. So
Okay.
these combiners are actually passive combiners. When we're combining the signal together, the 8-way will either do 8 by 1 out, or
Okay.
it will do 2, 4 by 1s, essentially,
1s.
depending on what mode you put it in. But what's cool about this is if you utilize these combiners and hook them up to the transmitter, there will be some communication between the two units. It's via the BNC.
Okay.
And I'm going to paraphrase here, but the combiner says, "Hey, transmitter, I see it looks like you're trying to do a 4-to-1 combined or an 8-to-1 combined." And the transmitter says, "Hey, combiner, you're exactly right. That is what I'm trying to do." And then what the combiner does is it says, "Hey, I'm here. I'm going to passively combine on your command. I'm going to passively combine 8-to-1. You do realize that there's going to be some losses associated with that."
Yep.
And the transmitter says, "I do realize that, and now I am going to maximize my output power to overcome or get close to overcoming those losses."
And that's not something you actually are going to have to set up in the transmitter. It's just doing it in the background based on your transmit mode. I mean, you're setting up your transmit mode, but you're not having to tell the system, "Hey, I'm combining 4 ways and doing this."
You're
in
going to tell
menu
the
structure.
combiner what you want to
Yeah,
do to
okay.
begin with, then you're going to hook it up, and it's going to recognize that it's hooked up and it makes sense compared to the setting that it's set in.
Got
And
it.
then the system will adjust for it.
So the other big question.
That's the way it's smart.
Okay. The other big question that we've already gotten asked this in some of our pre-launch conversations, but can we use an old 4-to-1 or 8-to-1 PSM antenna combiner with the new system?
That is somewhat of a loaded question, but
It is.
my answer for today is no, you
Okay.
can't. So now that we're in the digital world, if that transmitter system was in digital, it's got way too much power.
Yeah.
It'll blow up in a 4-to-1 or an 8-to-1.
Okay.
So you don't want to do that.
So just to make sure everyone who is watching, you need to have the new antenna combiners with the new PSM system.
Yes.
So there's also a little 2-to-1 combiner,
Correct.
and that is also smart.
It is also smart. It tells you, "Hey, I'm doing 2-to-1. There's a 4 dB loss on that." So it will tell the transmitter to overcome that 4 dB loss.
Got it.
Now, we didn't even talk about this, but Sean, we talked about, we've got a 4-channel 1 RU version.
That is true.
Right? So there's a whole bunch of different settings. We'll get into some of the use cases and the different modes in a few minutes, but out of the box, you can actually set that 4-channel stereo unit up to utilize one output, and it's got an internal combiner baked in.
That is pretty cool.
Yes. So usually we get the question.
Why would I need an antenna combiner?
Great question, Sean. The answer is, again, having to do with these power limitations. If you're going to use the internal combining of the unit by itself, you can take total power, whatever, divide it by 4, and that's going to be your transmit power per channel.
Yep.
Now, again, with some of those passive losses there, if you were wanting to purely maximize your power output on that carrier, you could take 4 individual outputs from the transmitter, go to the 8-channel combiner or use it in the 4-channel mode, and then that's where they would talk to each other and they would increase your output power. So
Got it.
I think a lot of our users are probably just going to buy 4-channel systems and put one antenna on it and be great. For some of our power users that are bigger stages or transmitting farther distances, we'll then bring it out to a combiner and maximize their power output.
Cool. Speaking of other power users, I guess I will say on this
Power
one.
users.
Power users.
No pun intended on the power.
Sure there wasn't. See what I did there?
I see what you did there.
We have another cool thing on here called Spatial Diversity.
Spatial diversity.
So tell me about Spatial Diversity.
So for those that are familiar with Axient Digital, we
Yes.
have something about quadversity. Remember the days where we didn't even have diversity. We had one antenna receiving
Yep.
a microphone system, and as you walk around physically, you're going to get the waves bouncing around, and you're going to get dropouts. Well, back in that day, we added a second antenna, and to essentially maximize or minimize the potential drops. Well, in Axient Digital, we have quadversity, which is 4 antennas, which is clearly better than 2 antennas.
Exactly.
To do that. So we have I was going to say the analog, but it's not because it's digital, right?
Yeah, that's true.
In ADPSM to where we can go with spatial diversity. Now, in the past, PSM analog, if you tried to split the signal and transmit the same frequency with 2 antennas, what happened?
Lots of weird things with your packs.
You get the dropouts, you get the buzzes, you get the wisps, you get all of these other RF terms, but it's bad.
Yes.
You don't ever want to cover the same frequency, the same area in the analog world. Well, now that we have a digital signal, we're actually able to put the new system into a spatial diversity mode.
Okay.
It comes at the cost of, well, if you're talking the quad, it comes at the cost of 2 of your transmit channels.
Okay.
So your quad now becomes a dual channel unit. But what it does is it takes that signal, slightly encodes them slightly different, allows you to cover any given space with 2 slightly different signals, and your pack will pick up on both of those and use obviously the best signal, or combine them when they're both working properly for even more robust coverage.
So even though you're eating up 2 channels, but if it's your main performer and they need to have coverage, sometimes it's worth doing that too, because you don't have to necessarily do it for everyone on stage. The drummer, who generally doesn't even need to be wireless.
Correct.
But they're generally not moving around, or the keyboard player, or things like that. The other cool thing that I think is obviously covering your stage, but also if you're getting into those larger type stages, like we see this a lot with big tours now. They're doing that little thrust forward stage up front. Side note, one time I saw the Rolling Stones 40 Licks tour. I'm now showing my age, but that was the coolest show I ever went to, because they had a little forward stage, and I was like 6 rows in front of that forward stage. So let me tell you, they were old then, and they're older now. But having something like this with the spatial diversity is I can have a set of antennas that's covering that forward stage, or a antenna that's covering that forward stage, and another antenna that's covering the main stage, to get that coverage. Because before, you used to have really sophisticated antenna distribution systems to be able to do that. You turn zones on, turn zones off. I have a friend who does stuff for the Super Bowl, and it has been interesting listening to his stories of trying to cover areas when you're running around a football field with PSMs and stuff like that. So
yes,
it gets interesting. So I think this will be a really cool feature that nobody is really offering. So
absolutely,
it's going to be another bonus for this. You mentioned there's basically a choose your own adventure. There's different modes of operations that I've been in on some trainings, and it's kind of mind-boggling everything that the engineering put into this. But let's kind of step through the different modes that we can operate in.
Absolutely. So this is, I think internally we've been talking about it, and it's been said that this is the most complex wireless product that Shure has ever developed. So there's a lot going on here, and it's going to be a little bit confusing when it first comes to market and people start using it. But kind of to break it down, step 1, I mentioned earlier that there were a lot of users of PSM 1000s out there that said, hey, I just want wide tuning range and I want digital inputs. Well, cool. I also mentioned that we have a mode for that. Essentially, we're operating it in analog mode, and it is a wide tuning bandwidth, and it is digital inputs. It works with your old PSM 1000 receivers.
But it'll also work with the new receiver packs.
So
the new receiver packs, you'll get analog but wide tuning.
Yes.
Versus my old analog PSM 1000 or 900 pack, I'm band limited based on what that was.
Correct.
So that's pretty cool. So that's mode number 1, analog.
Mode number 1, let's call it analog. I don't know, in the system it's probably not called that, but I'm calling that for our practical purposes. So the second level of users is great. That is all great, but I want the digital audio quality.
Yep.
So if you put it in the digital the digital mode, then you're going to be digital single carrier, single frequency mode. So 4 channels that they have their own carriers and they're doing all that.
So just like Axient Digital.
Just like Axient Digital, you get additional channels, not fully packed yet, but you get the advantage of the digital audio quality, the stereo separation, all the advantage, the wow factor. You know, in my opinion, this is probably where most operators will lie unless they have a reason to stay analog. I think the majority of the sales and the majority of the use of this system is going to be in digital mode, single carrier, single frequency mode.
Okay. Yep.
Pretty robust.
That makes sense.
That makes sense. So now if we want to step it up to, let's say, user group 3 or mode 3, is the WMAS component.
Yep.
So, okay, now I got a scenario where I'm doing lots and lots of channels in a very small space. So I am going to go from single carrier mode to WMAS mode, where I am now packing 4 channels in that 800 kilohertz block. This unit actually, underneath the hood, wink, wink, nod, nod, can actually do up to 4 of those 800 kilohertz chunks. So if you do the math and maybe watch in the future, we're hinting that maybe this box can do more than 4 stereo channels.
Sure is always working on new and exciting things.
Yes, we are. So I would call that the third mode of operation, where now you're not sending single carrier, single frequency, you're sending multi-carrier large chunks.
Okay.
From there, we could even go crazy and step up. We talked about spatial diversity. You could put it into spatial diversity mode and do 2 of your antennas. The other thing that's also coming, upon launch, we're going to be starting to ship these in January of 25.
Sweet.
So we're announcing now.
That's
and
right
we're
around the
shipping
corner.
right around the corner, already in production. Pretty excited about it.
Place your orders now.
Place your orders now. But some other things that people that know Axient Digital and know ShowLink with the full control, we have something called interference avoidance and detection. To where if you're getting interference on a particular frequency, that if you set it up, the system can either alert you or can automatically change your frequency. That won't be a part of the initial launch, but it is coming later in 25. So that will be a firmware update standard. What else?
Another cool one, kind of going along with that, is frequency diversity.
Frequency diversity.
So we've got that on Axient Digital.
Axient Digital.
ADXFD transmitters.
FD, frequency diversity.
So what that's doing is broadcasting on 2 separate frequencies, so that if you take an RF hit on one frequency, you're broadcasting on another frequency, and then you compare that with the interference and avoidance and have new frequencies pushed out and do all of that. So I'm assuming that'll be coming with that second kind of firmware wave.
It will. It will. So obviously you need to use a second, transmit and receive channel on that. Not receive channel, but transmit channel on that. So if you want the full frequency diversity. So
you're eating up 2 channels to do that, but all in one pack.
So I mean, these features that we're talking about now are generally the power users on the big tours or doing football games or whatnot. This is when it's mission critical and you're going to use basically all of the possible tools in the tool set to make sure you don't have any dropouts.
There is one other thing that is coming. This one I like as an engineer because I miss this feature that we used to have of being able to do point-to-point wireless.
Point-to-point wireless.
So before we used to take our PSM 1000 or PSM 900 and our good old trusty UHFR, and I could do a transmission from a point-to-point. So I would have hardware pieces instead of using packs. I'd rack mount gear on either location. So delay towers, auxiliary areas. Comes in super handy as a production guy. I need to get audio over here, but my equipment's over here, So it makes it easy. When Shure went down the road with Axient, or not even Axient, but launching with ULXD and then QLXD,
digital,
we kind of moved into the digital world. Yet PSMs were always in the analog, but we lost that point to point. So
we did. Now we're excited to finally have that mode, and that will be coming in a firmware revision in 25 as well.
And that firmware revision is free 99, right?
I think it is free 99.
Free 99. That'll be good.
Yes.
So, all right. Everything sounds awesome on this. We've covered a lot. So let's recap.
It is a very complex product.
It is. It is a very complex product, but the market was requesting it.
Market was requesting it.
And I think because it is complex, the cool thing is, with Axient, on our transmit side, we have AD and ADX, and, it's like kind of choose your own adventure. This is all baked in. It's one type of system, but you still get to choose your own adventure based on how you're using it and what type of tour, from everything from, I think you're going to see a lot on like House of Worship. They're going to probably use it in that standard digital mode. They're not going to need that like crazy power user stuff. But touring guys want the power user stuff. So I think it'll be awesome. So, I think things are standing out to me. Obviously, the digital audio quality has been a huge thing, and the wideband tuning. Digital inputs are huge. I'm going to shout out, another cool thing is they are working with some of the console manufacturers that AudioBiz may represent for remote control.
Oh, we'll have the third-party control.
Yeah,
I don't know when that's kind of contingent upon when those manufacturers get it up, but if you have it all networked in, you can see your battery life, you can control your head amps and things like that. Now, honestly, this is a little bit different because it's on the transmit side.
Yeah, the monitor engineers have been asking for that.
Absolutely.
So, we never really touched on this, but encryption is supported on this.
Encryption will be supported?
From corporate people, obviously, don't want people sniffing out what is going on, or that unauto-tuned vocal of your performer.
Figured it out.
So encryption, and encryption is supported on Q mode too, which is actually pretty cool because normally with those types of systems in a Q mode, you couldn't have encryption keys because you were listening to multiple channels. Mm-hmm. So that's cool. You guys figured that out. Super low latency, for a digital product. We've got good latency.
Let's talk about latency for a minute. We didn't actually get into that. That's an interesting trade-off in that, again, we get kind of stuck on the numbers, and that's ultimately what we're ending up with. But as the engineering went through this, doing a digital system is kind of complex, but latency is kind of one key point of a whole different set of trade-offs. So finding the right balance of what is the best audio quality that we can get with the best signal, robustness, with the spectral efficiency, all these, there's 4, 5, 6 different, 10, whatever, different factors that go into designing these systems.
Yeah.
And, knock on wood, our engineers think they've come up with at least our best guess at the trade-offs with this. It's a 2.9 milliseconds latency, so there's a little bit of trade-off there, but the audio quality and the fact that it is a very robust system overcome all that. So it's just important to note there are many different factors that go into designing these systems, and each are different levers, and that's what's interesting. The market will decide if we pulled the right levers,
That's true.
We're pretty excited about it.
Yeah. Wideband tuning. That's a huge thing. I think that's actually one of the coolest things, because anyone who is an Axient Digital user, especially if you're a production company or rentals, it's like the tour is like, I just need 4 channels of Axient. I don't have to be like, oh, where are you going? Let's look at your zip codes. Pull this band off. It's going to be super easy. Tour companies, production companies, rental is going to love this. It's one throat to choke, one SKU, one SKU
to hold in your rental application.
Obviously, we've got spectral efficiency with both our normal digital transmissions and then even to more extent with WMAS. So that's going to be really cool. I like the internal antenna combining. It's kind of nice, especially on some of these, again, with that choose your own adventure of, do I want more power? Do I want it's really small, tight pack with being able to have one single rack space and not have to have antenna combiners and do things like that, I think is going to be huge for
simple 4-channel rental or a House of Worship or something like that. You can buy the transmitter right there and put an antenna on it.
Yeah.
Call it a day.
ShowLink. Remote control capability, I think, is going to be huge. I think now we're starting to see more people get into the ADX on the microphone side of things and realize it's not. I mean, obviously the interference and being able to push frequencies and move around has been a huge thing. But to me, it seems like most of the people have been more excited about the workflow aspect of it. I don't have to get a pack back. I don't have to find people to do stuff. It's interesting when you start learning how people are using ShowLink. So
I think that's a good point, in that I remember I had a bit of a aha moment. I wasn't around Shure when Axient Digital was launched, and I remember all of the marketing campaign that had to do with the interference, avoidance, and detection, and all the frequency hopping and all that. It wasn't until years later that I got my hands on system with the ShowLink, and I had a aha moment that was, no, this is really about workflow. And for me, as a small production company owner and a pretty poor musician myself, workflow hands down is the best way to go. And now to have Axient Digital and Axient Digital PSM all on the same network, it's just an amazing, easy workflow.
Yeah, and that's been a thing that I've heard from some companies that I know that have gone down the road of different manufacturers for years. As this was in development, the one thing that I have heard constantly was the competition doesn't have the workflow that we have with our Axient Digital and our Workbench. So I think like you're saying, now that it's all under one big ecosystem, it'll be super, super easy from a workflow standpoint for all the engineers that have to deal with all the minutia every day of making it work in multiple different locations. So I think that'll be cool. I'm really happy over-the-air network or over-the-air firmware updates that is going to be huge. Again, some of these bands, it's crazy how some of these larger acts or theatrical or different things have 20, 30 packs, that need to be updated sometimes, or even, broadcast. There's tons of times it takes forever to update things normally.
I remember when I joined this industry, pretty quickly thereon, I was with the monitor engineer at the time for a Stevie Wonder show.
Okay.
And he said, I'm going to miss lunch because I've got to update my packs. And we started asking, well, how do you do it? And it was scan and sync and scan and sync and go through whatever 10, 12 packs. And at that point, we kind of said, well, are you using this software program? And he wasn't aware of this particular hardware or that particular software. And we arranged for him to try it, and it saved him literally hour and a half worth of work. He was able to go to lunch and call home and call his family. And again, back to the workflow situation. Yep. It's just a game changer.
Yeah. Spatial diversity, it's going to be really cool for those applications that need those crazy antenna distributions or large coverage areas. So I think that'll be fun to play around with. It's kind of like when you do quadversity, and it's when you show it to people, it's like kind of that big wide-eyed moment of I understand. This is cool.
I hear your spatial diversity, and I raise you WMAS.
Yes,
is going to be huge. I think we're going to be the first product to ship with WMAS capabilities in there. So we're super excited about that. Pack more into a block of frequencies and transmit a block of frequencies.
Yeah. I like to say the choose your own adventure, I think will be interesting. I'm excited to get this in the hands of engineers to see what modes everyone's going to use and how they're going to use it. It's fun. Never stop learning. I was like this, talking to a lot of just engineers and seeing those workflow tricks or how they're using stuff. It's kind of cool. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how people are going to adopt this and use the product.
You know what? I think we're going to get some of our answer. Again, today is launch day, so we're going to get some of our answer if you look at some of the videos and things that we're releasing as Shure. The product's actually been out there in testing for quite some time, and it's been on some very interesting tours. So we're going to hear directly from those engineers pretty quick.
Yeah, find those videos. I'll maybe put a link below. That's what we're supposed to do. It's down there.
Underneath the table?
Yes, underneath the table. Point-to-point wireless, this will be huge. Again, delay towers, having that hardware, I think that'll be awesome. And then obviously our frequency diversity, interference,
detection
mitigation,
and avoidance.
Yes, I think all of that, I'm looking forward to firmware release 2 or Rev 2. I don't know, it's probably not firmware 2, but that's firmware coming later with some of those advanced features over the summer. I think will be really interesting to see too.
Several people have asked me, okay, why isn't it on the first release? And the answer is, we're doing a lot of work. We'd like to keep our engineers. We'd like to kind of space them out.
Yes. don't want to work them to the
They did a
bone.
great job, getting the first set of criteria up and launched and running, and we want to give them some breather room to follow up with the rest of the stuff. So
I am always amazed when we get trained on these and learn about new products that you hear the backstory of engineers like, oh yeah, I started this project 5 years ago for something that's relevant today. That blows my mind of how forward thinking engineering is, and solving problems that haven't even occurred yet, almost with feature sets and things like that. It's really cool. So I'm excited to see this. I think, obviously, if you are interested in hearing it, reach out to us at AudioBiz, and we can hook you up with a demo. We've got samples, and we're going to be making the rounds with everyone, showing this new product off. Like I mentioned, you're going to want to get your orders in. Make sure you got all that gear ready for touring season next year. Everyone's going to be excited to use it. So if you've got any more questions, reach out to us at audiobiz.com. You can also email me. I got my own customized email address, Redbeard at audiobiz.com.
Can I get a no beard at AudioBiz?
Sure, we can hook you up.
Okay.
Brian, you can do that. Brian's our producer off camera. So
he'll forward it to me.
Exactly, he'll forward it to you. So again, if you're interested in demos, just more information about the system, hit us up at audiobiz.com, and we'll help you out. Thanks again, Eric.
We'll see you out there. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
this is nice.
This is fun. We're going to have to do one of our hot conversations and eat some chicken wings and do hot sauce one of these days.
Let's do it.
Dig into what makes Eric Eric. So
bring it on.
Stay tuned.